Welcome back to the Classic and Current Gaming Podcast, a weekly podcast where we look at the history and development of video games. I'm your host, RxDude22, and this is Season 2, where we're looking at all the titles being used in Season 7 of the Retro Gaming League on Facebook. The Retro Gaming League is a friendly competition where pages come together and play a different classic retro video game each week head-to-head to see who can win. This week's game, we're going back to the Super NES. One of the best cartoon/kid shows of the 90s. We're talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers today. Let's dive right into it. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was the title for the first Power Rangers game for the Super Nintendo. It was released in September 1994 in North America, January 1995 in Europe, and November 1995 in Japan. Featuring the original 5 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the game is a classic beat-em-up where you must fight your way to victory. The SNES version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a side-scrolling action game composed of 7 stages, with 2 different gameplay styles. In the initial 5 areas, the player controls one of the 5 original Power Rangers, Jason, Zack, Kimberly, Billy, and Trini, as they are sent to a location as being invaded by Rita Repulsa's Putty Patrollers. The player begins the area as the selected character's civilian form, who will fight enemies using their unique hand-to-hand fighting style. After reaching a certain point of the stage, the player character will transform into their ranger form until they defeat the boss at the end of the area. As a Power Ranger, the player will attack using the character's signature weapon, as well as have access to a greater repertoire of special techniques and abilities than their regular counterparts, such as body blows and wall jumps. The Ranger will also have a special attack that will damage all on-screen enemies at once, but can only be used once until replenished. Strangely, these screen-clearing attacks never were utilized in the series. Kimberly's attack involves a shower of pink crystals. Billy's attack involves an ice shower. Zack's attack is a boulder ground pound attack. Trini's attack involved lightning. Jason's attack creates a wall of fire. In the final 2 areas, the player will control the Megazord and fight against a giant monster. While controlling the Megazord, the player will have a power gauge below their life gauge that will determine what kind of special attacks the Megazord can perform. Depending on how much the power gauge has been filled, the Megazord can perform from 1 of 4 possible special attacks. There are also 2 player versions of this Megazord battle accessed via passcodes, in which the second player can control the enemy monster. The 7 bosses in the game are all based on villains, which were featured during the first season of the series. Area 1, Downtown Angel Grove, Bones. Area 2, Industrial District, Gnarly Gnome. Area 3, Sewers, Eye Guy. Area 4, Skyscraper Under Construction, Genie. Area 5, Cave Hideout, Dark Warrior. Area 6, Offshore Oil Refinery, Mutitus. And Area 7, Rita's Moon Palace, Cyclopsis, in 2 forms. Plot of the game. It was a normal day in the city of Angel Grove when the Rangers witnessed an attack on the city and saw Rita's face in the dark sky. She had sent down a bunch of monsters and putties to defeat them. It is up to the Power Rangers to stop them and save the day. There are 5 different areas that you must put your Rangers through as they fight putties and avoid obstacles to reach the end. Half through the area, the boss is seen and your Ranger must morph. Then the Ranger must survive stronger putties and more hazardous obstacles. Finally, at the end of the level, your Ranger must battle a monster boss. There are 2 more levels, which are Zord battles. Also, all areas, including the last 2, have a code allowing you to skip straight to that level. Once all 7 areas of the game are completed, the Rangers go on a joyride to Ernie's Juice Bar. Characters. At the beginning of each area, you must choose one of your 5 Rangers. Jason, the Red Ranger. The leader of the Power Rangers, his weapon is the Power Sword. He fights using traditional martial arts and makes for a heavy-hitting character. Jason's bomb is a bursting, fiery explosion. Zack, the Black Ranger. The team's second in command, Zack fights using a mix of martial arts and high-speed dance moves. When morphed, he uses his power axe in battle. Zack's bomb causes huge chunks of earth to rain down on his enemies. Billy, the Blue Ranger. The brains behind the team. Behind Billy's unassuming physique lies a formidable yet unconfident warrior. When morphed, he uses his power lance in battle. Billy's bomb summons huge ice crystals in a frozen explosion. Trini, the Yellow Ranger. A spiritual warrior, Trini fights using skillful, precise movements. When morphed, she uses her power daggers in battle. Trini's bomb summons a storm of yellow electricity to attack her foes. Kimberly, the Pink Ranger. A vain but skillful gymnast, Kimberly attacks with high speed and graceful movement. When morphed, she uses her power bow both as a ranged and melee weapon. Kimberly's bomb causes pink energy beams to cut through the sky. Bosses. Bones, the first monster to appear in the series in episode High Five. Featured in Area 1, the easiest villain to beat. Players usually put him against Trini because she was the only one ultimately to defeat him in the series. Gnarly Gnome. Appeared in the episode Different Drum. Featured in Area 2. He is the most hated by gamers because of his teleportation, an ability given to all the monsters, but he does it repeatedly and rapidly. Some players pit him against Kimberly because he would have hypnotized her friend Melissa if not for the fact that she is deaf. Eye Guy. First appeared in the episode Eye Guy. Featured in Area 3, the most memorable monster from the game. Gamers mostly put him against Billy as he played a big part in defeating him in the series. Genie appeared in the episode Switching Places. Featured in Area 4. He is the only boss that does not attack directly, rather using magical projectiles. Some players pit him against Kimberly or Billy because of their soul switch and his ultimate defeat in the series. Dark Warrior appeared in the episode Dark Warrior. Featured in Area 5, he is the strongest and hardest monster to beat. Players usually put him against Jason, who is the leader and considered the strongest ranger, by his cousin Jeremy, even though the episode was focused around Trini. Mutitus appeared in the episode Island of Illusion, featured in Area 6, the first boss to battle the Megazord. He fights in his second and stronger form. Cycopsis, an evil Zord commanded by Goldar. Featured in Area 7, the final area. The second boss to battle the Megazord and the strongest of all. He has 2 lives. When beaten the first time, he changes to his second form. Notes about the game. The game uses the same engine as Natsume's Ninja Warriors again, also for the SNES, causing the games to share many physics and sound effects. The game has no overall narrative and thus no plot to it, presented as a series of disconnected adventures. The game is set during the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, although at the time of its release the show was already halfway into Season 2. Tommy, the Green Ranger, does not appear in the game, although he appears in the game's commercials via Zoranger stock footage. By the time of the game's release, he had already returned as the White Ranger. The game was released after Jason, Zack, and Trini's departure. Billy and Kimberly would later return in the game's sequel with new unmorphed sprites. Every morphed Ranger sprite, including Trini and Kimberly's, appears as a recolor of the Red Ranger. These sprites would be reused for the game's sequel. Zack's name is misspelled as Z-A-C-H on the character screen. It's normally spelled Z-A-C-K. Zordon, Alpha, and Goldar do not appear in the game at all. None of the game stages appeared in the show at all. Ernie, Bulk, and Skull appear during the ending credits but have no dialogue or action in the main game. Similar to its Sega Genesis counterpart, Cycopsis also appears as the final boss with its 2 forms. Reception. The 4 reviewers of Electronic Gaming Monthly gave the Super NES game a score of 6.5 out of 10, but a unanimously negative assessment, saying it has poor animation and dull level design, and is, quote, simply way too easy for experienced players. They praised the character selection feature, but conclude that even Power Ranger fans would find the game entertaining for only a short while. Nintendo Magazine System gave the game an overall score of 77, describing the difficulty as mighty tough. Praise was given to the energetic presentation and style akin to the TV show, fluid controls and animation, and the attention and detail in making each character unique with trademarked moves. One of the reviewers gave Bandai credit for a, quote, genuine attempt at something vaguely special, calling the result pretty cool, while the other reviewer dubbed the game unoriginal. Other criticism was directed at the old-fashioned gameplay and repetitive feel, with the final consensus being that the game was more for hardcore fans than hardcore gamers. All information in the podcast was provided by Ranger Wiki and Wikipedia. And that'll bring a close to episode 20 of the Classic Concurrent Gaming Podcast. This week we looked at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. There are multiple ways to check out the podcast. You can watch the podcast on YouTube. You can also listen to it on Spotify or other several listening platforms as well. Next week, we're going to dive into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist, which is the next game to be used for the Retro Gaming League. We'll see you next week, folks. It's been RxDude22 from the Classic Concurrent Gaming Podcast signing out. Keep on gaming. See you on the next stream. And you'll hear me on the next podcast. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.